Good day for you so far?
Yeah, man. Great day. The Cubs are about to win this game against the Cardinals.
When you read the Wikipedia history of the world, you see that Samm Levine was born in Chicago, but I know that you grew up around Fort Lee, New Jersey. How exactly did you become a Cubs fan? Just being born there?
Happy to tell you. So, yes, I was in fact born there, but that's not why I love the Cubs like I love the Cubs. So my folks obviously spent a good deal of time in Chicago. It's where both my brother and I were born and spent a little time when we were, very small. But then starting when I was 8 years old, every summer we would drive from Jersey back to Chicago and spend like 2 full weeks there. And so when I was 8 years old, that's when my dad took me to my first game at Wrigley. And I went up, I got up under that, saw the green, the brick, the ivy, and my mind was blown. And I had such a good time there. And, then after that, he took me to games at Shea and Yankee, but nothing quite had that same feel to me as Wrigley. So every year I'd spend all winter asking, so when we go back to Chicago this summer, we're going to go to Wrigley, right? We're going to see the Cubs? We're going to see the Cubs? Yeah. And then I just began following the Cubs like it was, another religion. And so the Cubs have always had a very special place in my heart.
I would have imagined being about the same age as me, if not the same age as me, despite how it looks. Growing up in New Jersey, the 86 Mets, you would have been a front runner like me and just gone on the Mets bandwagon.
Yeah, no, I just never – the problem was my father really wasn't a big baseball fan.
Sure.
Like, he likes the sport enough, but it was never about, watching every game on TV when you can. Like, that was never his thing. So for me, it was more or less falling in love with it on my own. And so, I got really lucky because back in those days – it wasn't as competitive with, airing only certain games in certain markets and everyone's got their own channel and you had to have a special package. It was like, no, sometimes you get WGN and you could just watch 80% of the Cubs games. And so that helped me tremendously as a younger guy to be able to as easily seek out on my own and find those Cubs games on TV.
I can only imagine. And before I ask you even more about the Cubs and all that, we were
they just won.
Talk about Immortal, and if I don't, I think those movie publicists are going to put the smackdown on both of us.
To hell with them. We can talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Well, first, I do want to ask you about the film. IMDb, if I, again, have done my research correctly, says that it's a 2019 film, so I assume it was finished last year, and it's kind of old news in a way to you?
I think it had its premiere at one of those smaller fests. That was actually last year. I do know it screened in LA last year. I was not in town when that screening happened. Otherwise, I would have been there. So my guess is it's one of those things like, how V for Vendetta technically was screened at the Button-Umathon in Austin in 2004, but didn't get a wide release till 2005. So depending on which way you want to go, it changes the release year. But by and large, 2020 is when everyone else gets to see this movie.
Yeah, it is an intense movie to say the very least. People have been following you a long time, have always known that this guy can act, but we haven't quite seen you act like this before. Like, yes, we saw you with a gun in Inglourious Bastards, but not pointing a gun in such a way like this movie. So was there any kind of hesitation of showing this kind or side of yourself?
Quite the opposite. I leapt at the chance. The writer-director of this movie, John DeBach, is a pal. I worked with him once before on another, indie, dark comedy called I'd Like to Be Alone Now, where I played a young father and husband who lost his wife and kids in an accident. We had such a good time working on that. And he and I had sort of had the conversation a couple times like, hey, man, if you could have any sort of script, what do you gravitate towards? What do you feel like you want to do? You haven't gotten a chance to do. And, I always said, like, I want to play like a tough guy with a gun. I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be a great challenge for me, something that most people don't ever give me the opportunity to do. And, toughness, I guess, is up to your own interpretation, but he's certainly a guy with a gun. And I don't want to give away too much for those who haven't seen the movie. But yeah, it was it was a really nice change for me when I read what John had written, and you know, the wonderful, flattering thing that he wrote it for me, with me in mind, is always what you want to hear as an actor, is knowing that a talented writer is writing for your voice in a way that nobody's really seen you speak before. So no, I'm very grateful to John for writing this, and he's a wonderful collaborator. He is really great, you know, when I don't want to say when I've got notes, but he's really great, like being willing to talk about how we both see it and how I see it. And, hey, can we try this? Do you think this would work? And, you know, whether he says, yes, I do, or no, I don't, it's always nice to know when you can have a conversation with a writer-director who's willing to have that conversation, because some just aren't. Some guys are like, nope, the script is what the script is, and you either want to do it or you don't. And that's not John at all. He's very receptive to new ideas, to suggestions, to alternative takes, and I'm very grateful that he's that kind of guy.
When you personally play a really dark character like that, are you able to just snap out of it in a minute or two, or do you come home as that character?
Snapping out of it is easier than snapping into it. So, you know, like there's definitely a couple scenes in there where, you know, I would ask him like, hey man, either give me 30 seconds before you say action, or know that I'm going to need 30 seconds after you say action to kind of roll into it. And he was very cool about that. So yeah, getting into it is the tricky part. Getting out of it that's fine. I mean, that's like shaking off a cold, you know, or shaking off the cold, I should say. But yeah, no, that you know, it's certainly a type of role that required some, you know, acting muscles that maybe I hadn't gotten to use in a while. So I was happy for the opportunity.
Any recollection as to how many days you were on set for the film?
Oh boy. Well, as I'm sure you know, our film in itself is a short,
right?
As are the other three. So and I hope I'm not making anybody angry here. I think we shot all of my stuff in 3, maybe 4 days total.
Wow.
Like we banged that thing out guerrilla filmmaker style. The opening sequence that we shot in that park was the first stuff we shot, and we were at a public park with no permits on a Sunday morning at 6 a.m. Like doing our best to get everything shot and done before, you know, actual moms and kids started showing up at 7:30.
I wouldn't have had any idea, because the way that the movie is presented at first glance as a writer, before you see the trailers, kind of the all-star ensemble cast full of stars that you know from film and television.
Right.
So you don't always quite expect to hear, 3 to 4 days, we knocked some of it out very quickly.
Thank you. I mean, I appreciate that. My thanks there definitely goes to John and our incredibly talented crew for making that happen the way we did. Being able to shoot that much in that few days, you can't do that unless you've got a crew that knows what they're doing. There were no newbies there. Those were seasoned pros. This was a labor of love for everyone. Nobody bought boats on this movie.
People, going back to the old research thing, people look at your credits, can see that there's other projects that you've done since then. Bonded is one of them. Wags to Riches is another. Are there other projects as well? You know, I can't talk about that kind of stuff, but
it's not that I can't talk about it. I haven't been sworn to secrecy or anything, but I'm always just so nervous to talk about what I've got in the pipeline.
Right.
If I don't have a release date, if I don't know what stage of post it's in, if they're trying to make some sort of sale and then I say something in a chat like this and I blow the sale for the producers, you know. So those are definitely all projects that I have done that are all completed, that I am waiting as anxiously as anyone to find out what's happening next with them. Bonded is one I'm especially anxious to know about. That's another very serious project covering very serious subject matter where I am definitely playing against type. And I'm happy to sit down again and talk with you about that as soon as I know what's going on with it. But Yeah, that one I can certainly talk about the cast. I mean, it's got Jason Patrick in it.
Right.
And let me tell you, man, he plays a real serious MFer in that. And I am on the wrong side of him in that movie, and boy, you don't want to be. So yeah, it's an intense movie that covers, like I said, some very serious subject matter, and I hope that one gets to be seen by the masses soon. But switching it back to what we're here to talk about, I'm thrilled that Immortal is able to be seen by the masses now. It's on VOD currently. We did shoot this one a while ago. At least we shot my piece. I think we shot my piece of it first. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of why there was this extended period before all of the other pieces could be shot. Everything was edited, stitched together, and they wanted to make sure that it found a good home. So yeah, that's sort of the thing, is you shoot these smaller budget indies that everybody believes in, but there's no guarantee when they're going to get to be seen. So, sometimes, like right now, because of COVID, if you're like me, if you watch a lot of TV, you watch a lot of ads for like movies on VOD, you are seeing ads for movies that you're like, wait, what is this movie? And then it finishes with, this film is not yet rated. You're like, oh, so this is a movie that they shot 5 years ago.
Right.
Because they got Bruce Willis for a day. And then has never found a home.
Right.
And now that there's no new movies to be released, now it's time for this 5-year-old Bruce Willis movie. Hey, we got a movie. We got a movie for VOD. So we're not going to release in theaters? Nope. So we don't need to show it to the MPAA? Nope. Let's throw it out there, man.
The amazing thing is, the example that I was about to use was Bruce Willis for that. I don't know when he became that guy. Hey, I love Die Hard. I love the classics and all that. You're a New Jersey guy like he is. But at a certain point, he kind of took the, I don't know, who was the direct-to-video guy? Dolph Lundgren?
Dolph Lundgren, sure. Also Nick Cage. If you look at Nick Cage's resume, the last 10 years, you're going to go, I have literally never heard of 95% of these movies. So Nick Cage and his agents or his lawyers or whomever are like, all right, so Nick is available. We give them 10 shooting days with Nick Cage, $2.5, $3 million, whatever it is, and he'll say yes.
And
nothing else matters.
The circle of life is who then gets offered the co-stars for press junkets?
Yep.
This guy.
Yeah. And so then it's just a formulaic by the numbers thing. They're like, okay, well, if we can get Nick Cage for $3 million and then we can shoot the movie for $500,000, we can keep our whole budget to $3.5 million. And because it's got Nick Cage and this person and it's this type of genre film, we know we can guaranteed sell that movie for $5 million. So the money works out and then everybody wins. Basically, I think is how it works. And yeah, look, I'm also an independent film producer.
Right.
So I've structured deals like that. And yeah, it seems silly to pay your lead actor, who may not even be the lead of your film, $1 million to be in what is essentially a $1.5 million movie.
Right.
But if you know that you're going to be able to plug that into the VOD market and turn a profit on it, go ahead.
Go ahead, as Dice Clay would say. Do it and all that.
Do it, and everybody gets paid.
Well, obviously there's that sophistication there that a lot of actors don't have. When did you transition into being able to do production and behind-the-scenes work related to film?
I dipped my toe into it over 10 years ago. I helped produce a short film. And it was the real first time I had ever done anything on a set that wasn't just acting. And I realized at that point I had been on more than enough sets and paid attention, whether I was trying to or not, to all the ins and outs of everything else going on a set before the actors are there, or I guess while the actors are there. And so after that, I had to figure out what else happens before the actors get there. And it took some time, but I picked up on it, and I found it to be very rewarding sometimes, because as an actor in my career, I had been asked to read many, many, many scripts. Hey man, we got this great script. We think you'd be perfect for it. And I go, that's terrific. Do you have anyone else attached? Do you have any money? Well, no. But if you said yes, we think it'd be great. And I always had to give the bad news to, these production. I'd go, well, that's very sweet of you to say. And I'm very flattered, but me saying yes to your movie will get it maybe $5,000 from an investor. So not quite enough to make it.
Right. I appreciate that humility. I'm not yesing because I think that you're only worth $5,000. Just saying there's that, you get it.
I do get it. And I'm like, look, you can plug me in, and maybe that will help. Like, I would say the only thing I might help being attached to a movie is get another actor interested, maybe. Because and I'm not saying that to have a big head, but like, actors who've never worked together, sometimes they like each other's work. And I've had that conversation with actors who I'm a huge fan of. Like, I'll meet them at an event or something. They go, oh, hey, man, I really love your work. I'll go, really?
Yeah.
And, like, it's a lovely surprise. So I would say on that front, maybe we might accidentally attract someone who might bring us in some money. But that's not something you want to bet on when you're trying to raise money for a movie. So it was just one of those things where I sort of learned how the building blocks come together when you start with a really good script. And it was frustrating that I read good script after good script and I wasn't ever able to see them get made or help them get made. And so I sort of wanted to learn, okay, I know I can't get it made on my name based as an actor, but what can I do to help this get made otherwise? Like, maybe I can reach out to other actors who are bigger names than me and who might find this script as good as I do. And if I can get them to say yes, maybe I can find a really great cinematographer who wants to try his hand at directing or her hand at directing.
Or her.
And that is the way it's been the last several years. And I'm thrilled that I've been able to help be a part of that, the tiniest part of that. But it's like, yeah, man, let's get a super talented a female director who has done some really great short films, but isn't able, for whatever reason, to pound on the doors to the studio hard enough to get them to listen. Like, let's put her in a position to direct something that we love, and she can show off how talented she is. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of that. So, it's a lot more frustrating than the frustrations I've dealt with as an actor, because the frustrations you deal with as an actor are, well, why didn't I get seen for this role? Or, okay, I went in and did everything I could do in the audition and it just didn't go my way. And that's pretty much it. At least in terms of getting the role, in terms of getting the movie made, getting the funding for the movie, attracting the right talent, that can be far more frustrating because there's so many more things that can go wrong. But on the rewarding side, when it all comes together and goes right, that is so much more rewarding to me than so many of the things that I found success as an actor. So that's why I started gravitating towards it and why it's something I'm definitely going to be pursuing the rest of my life.
That's wonderful. I was going to throw you a compliment, which I guess I still will. When I look at your career, it's very inspiring to see that you've had a lot of great projects, but more so that you never quit. Because a lot of people, when they're part of a big project or two that are extremely acclaimed cult following things, and that doesn't parlay to the biggest thing right away, they go, well, I tried this, I moved on. But as we talked about a moment ago, producing, you figured out your way to act and produce. A lot of people just entirely quit the acting once they go into the producing.
Sure.
Are you writing and or aspiring to direct as well?
I am also writing. I still have no real goals, no strong desires to direct. I every time I meet someone through whatever channels who's like a born director, it always reminds me like, oh yeah, you don't have that. You were not born with that. This person wakes up every day with a burning fire to spin 100 plates and tell a huge story. And I'm always like, yeah, no, I want to leave that to the people who wake up with that burning fire every day. Like I don't want to say the only thing, but maybe someday I'll have that for some very specific project that like I read the script and I help shepherd it, or maybe I write the script or whatever it is that I feel like, no, this is the one I have to do, but I'm not there yet. So until then, I have no real desire to do that. And also, you're very sweet to say that. And I can't quit acting because I have no real world skills.
Well, there's rumors that you are one hell of a poker player. Is that still something you're fully engaged in?
I don't know what you're talking about. I can't imagine who you heard that from. I abstain from all vices. I don't drink. I don't gamble. And I don't eat trife.
Jewish journal. I mean, it's appropriate that there's no trife right there and all that.
Is it trife? And I said trife. I will edit that up. I thought it was trife.
Correctly. It's trife. I thought it's trife.
Wow.
Whatever it is, it's not rapper Obi Trice.
Well, now I have to look it up, because have I been saying it wrong my whole life?
I'm going to bet that Samm Levine was correct. Simple as that.
No. Okay, it's Traif, and it says Trayf, Treyf. Do you know what the problem is?
No, I don't.
It's the Yiddish word. It's a Yiddish word, so I don't know if... All right. I'm going to say we're both right. It depends on how good your Yiddish is.
Tomato, trafe, trife, whatever it is.
Okay.
Speaking of which, being around my age, when you speak to people who are much older, there was no such thing as a bar mitzvah theme. Did you have a bar mitzvah theme?
I did not. My parents were not fans of the theme. So as I like to say, the theme of my bar mitzvah was me.
I would have imagined that it was going to be all old-timey comedians, so you were going to have a George Burns table and a Groucho Marx table.
That would have been the way I would have gone had I been given the opportunity to have a theme. But no, the theme was me. And you are correct, though, with comedians. I did a 30-minute stand-up set at my reception.
Wow. At what age did you most recently watch that and have to shudder?
Oh, I've not watched it in over 25 years. But I don't know that I'd shudder, and I'll tell you why. I wasn't really doing my own material. I was doing the late, great Richard Jeni's material. So the material was rock solid.
Yeah.
I don't know how good my delivery is looking back or was looking back. I'm okay not looking back, but I mean, I did that set at quite a few bar mitzvahs.
Wow.
Well, pieces of that set.
Fragments. Shorts, if you will. I
Oh,
like
yeah.
to ask that question. When I asked Adam Duritz from Counting Crows that same question, he said that the other day he'd taken out his bar mitzvah speech to read to his girlfriend. So you never know. Sometimes it's fresh on the mind with anniversaries.
So that must be how he got all those women in the 90s.
The
Adam Duritz little black book of gals he called his lady. He's putting up like Tate Donovan numbers. I don't know what Adam Duritz and Tate Donovan are drinking, what their workout routine is, what kind of cologne they wear, but I want to find out, because those two gentlemen, especially Duritz, wow.
Yeah, I can't top that. But love my wife.
Attaboy. And I'm my fiance. But still, it's just one of those things. I'm very curious to know how that all went down.
Next time I interview him, I won't ask the bar mitzvah questions. I will ask the Neil Strauss gaming questions.
I don't think he's a scoundrel about it. I just think my guess is, and I met Tate Donovan once, but moreover, I've met two women who I'm not going to name who he dated at some point, and I asked them both point blank. I was like, how is Tate Donovan's game? Because I have to know. Like, he dated you, he dated this one, and they both just said, like, he's a very charming guy. And I was like, okay, I guess that it's really that simple. Like, charming and charm goes a long way, I suppose, when it comes to starlets.
Some people have that sales gene. I don't have that sales gene. I can't sell you insurance. I can't sell you anything. He probably could parlay that into sales.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Tate Donovan and Adam Duritz ever have to find a new line of work, I'm going to say they should be selling Ferraris because oh man, best job in the world for those guys.
You've been beyond generous with your time. You got time for 3 quick questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, the first question comes from a fan, a neighbor and a fan. She wanted to know where Neil from Freaks and Geeks would have wound up, in your humble opinion, 10 to 15 years after the fact.
Okay, 10 to 15 years after the fact. So Neil almost certainly would have, upon getting to college, he would have joined all the drama clubs, all the theater clubs. He wouldn't have found much success there. He probably would have done community theater, maybe open mic night doing, Neil and Morty. And it wouldn't have gone very well, but he would have, he was also a realistic guy. So at some point he probably would have gone to grad school and gotten a business degree, but his main focus would have been, trying to launch his ventriloquist live stage career. And so eventually around, probably 30, he would have gone, all right, I gave it my best shot, but now I'm just going to, be a guy at a venture capitalist firm and make a good living that way.
I get it.
And he would have just done ventriloquism, tried to woo the ladies. That would have been his Adam Duritz.
Oh yeah. It all comes back to
instead of reading his bar mitzvah speech, he would have done a little piece from Neil and Morty.
Not Fred Durst, Adam Duritz. Yeah, you choose the better Dur right there.
Yeah.
Question 2. You were part of Kevin Pollak's chat show, which ran 400 episodes.
Yes, it did.
Having done all that, and I'm sure I watched 150 of those episodes, do you still have in your DNA to want to do a talk show of your own one day?
Now, talk show is different to me than what we were doing on the Kevin Pollak chat show, because that was a serious, in-depth, long-form interview.
Charlie Rose with
most of those interviews, Charlie Rose on steroids. Most of those interviews ran close to 2 hours, if not over 2 hours.
Sure.
Which, I guest hosted quite a few episodes of those over the 10 years we did it. I think I came very close to hosting almost 40 of those. So 10% of those episodes were me, and for better or worse, I did all my own research when I interviewed people. So I know how much work I put in to do those. So I don't have a serious desire to keep doing that level of work for that style of show. But if you want to talk about talk show, like the way I think of it, like Late Night with Conan O'Brien, or Late Night with David Letterman, or rather the Late Show with David Letterman, and or Late Night with David Letterman, both fit.
Yeah.
Then yeah, I would always consider being a late night talk show host, but I have this horrible fear that the late night talk show hosts of our youth, our generation, guys like Letterman, guys like, and I mean, I'm a little young for this, but Tom Snyder.
Oh, I love Tom Snyder. Yeah.
That's not what the late night talk show host looks like anymore.
Right.
Now it's guys like Fallon and James Corden who do big bits, who do games, and who do shit with the audience.
And can't offend anyone. No.
And don't you dare risk alienating middle America with a joke. So it's different. To me now, the guy who most represents the old school is Jimmy Kimmel. And I love Jimmy. I've had the great pleasure of knowing Jimmy 20 years now, and I love what he does on his show. So to do something like what Jimmy Kimmel does, yes, I would be honored to have a late night show like that, to be a talk show host like that. But yeah, if I ever did a podcast, it wouldn't be long form interviews. I'll say that.
Well, I do hope your Joe Franklin-esque talk show does eventually happen. I can kind of see you being a tolerable Joe Franklin.
I would do a Joe Franklin-esque show in a heartbeat. Great reference, and anyone who's like, Joe Franklin, research it, look it up, and boy, are you getting in for a treat.
Well, in closing, Sam, any last words for the kids?
For the kids, how old are these kids?
I think if they're watching Samm Levine, I'm going to peg them as 32 to 58, 60.
Okay, kids. It gets better. I don't know. Look, this is the weirdest time in pretty much all of our lives that we're all going through right now. And, you know, the more I spend thinking about it, and I guess you and I are both old enough, and I'm thinking back to that really strange period right after 9/11 when we were, at least as a country, in this very strange transitional time where we knew things were never going to be the same, but we really weren't sure collectively what the new future was going to look like. And that's very much where we are right now. I don't think anyone has a very firm idea of what 2021 is going to look like, or certainly anything beyond that. So it's been really good for me to help sort of reevaluate what's important to me. And I encourage everyone to sort of do the same. Since the future is so uncertain, spend any uncertain time you have right now making sure you know what's important to you. And that's different for everyone. So I can't tell you what it is going to be for you, but I know what's important to me. And so I guess I'm sort of striving to make sure I spend the rest of my life focusing on that, because I've figured out that that's what gives me joy and makes me the happiest, and the things that are most important to me. So I encourage everyone to do that.
I can't top that. Sam, thank you a ton for your time. Congrats on this great new project, and anything I could ever do to help the Samm Levine cause, you know where to find me. Just keep up with the great work you're doing, and really great to see you like acting in Immortal. Great work.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the very kind words. Always a pleasure talking to you. We will do it again for sure.
Thanks, Sam. Have a great rest of the night.
You too. Bye.
Paltrocast.